I ended up going to a functional medicine doctor, and it changed my life. So a company reached out to me, full body MRI company called Pronuvo. They said, hey, we're getting an Irving location, first in Texas. We want you to come and get a scan. We'll gift it. And got the curveball of my life. They found a brain tumor in that scan.
Completely asymptomatic.
No symptoms at all.
Picture of health and wellness, obviously helping a lot of people. And she had a brain tumor.
They said it had been growing probably 8 to 10 years by the time we caught it, which is crazy. And the whole thing's just miraculous. In between diagnosis and brain surgery, which I said was 5 months, we actually shrunk the tumor in half. 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer and 1 in 2 men. Those statistics are sobering.
So let's get into the state of health in America.
Our food supply, it is so hybridized. It is sprayed with so many chemicals. I mean, it is truly insane. The cosmetic industry, there's been over 75,000 synthetic chemicals allowed that are not studied, let alone not studied, but also in conjunction with other things. Genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. It's the first time I've ever shared this publicly.
Hey there, I'm Travis Patterson, and welcome to Driving Change. Here, you're going to find unfiltered insights and hard-hitting questions that challenge the status quo in law and in life. As a personal injury lawyer in Fort Worth, Texas, I see firsthand how challenges like distracted driving and other just general family safety issues really impact our community every single day. But I refuse to accept these problems as inevitable. In this podcast, we're going to dig deep into real-world problems, bringing you practical solutions from my experiences in practicing law, raising a family, and running my own business. I'm not here to preach to anybody. I'm here to simply ask questions and start conversations that make you think differently and provide you actionable advice that you can use right away in your own life. So welcome to Driving Change. Let's get to it.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Driving Change podcast. I am Travis Patterson. I am joined today by one of my buddies, Taylor Dukes, the infamous Taylor Dukes, functional medicine nurse practitioner to the stars.
Oh, gosh. I'm honored to be here.
Taylor, thank you for coming. You have a long bio. I feel like everybody I know already knows you, but I just want to start with your story.
Yeah.
First, tell me what exactly functional medicine is. I think I know it, but every time I say it, someone's like, no, that's not even close. So what is functional medicine? What's a functional medicine nurse practitioner, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I went to TCU for nursing school, functional integrative medicine. None of that was even on my radar. I was just like, I want to be a trauma ICU nurse. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I like fast-paced environments. I'm quick on my feet. So I went to TCU just thinking I'd do that. And I'll kind of explain functional medicine as I explain my story. And so I got really, really sick. And so I actually had the opportunity to go abroad after I went to TCU and graduated. Everyone goes to the hospital and gets their job, and I kind of went rogue. I kind of do things different. You'll see that that's a theme. You already know that.
Yes.
And so I was like, cool, God gave me the opportunity to go to Africa and do missionary ministry stuff, and it was awesome. And then after Africa, I went to Ecuador. But being abroad, I got really, really sick. And so I ended up getting flown back from Ecuador way sooner than I had planned to. And I had all these mysterious symptoms. So my hair was falling out. I was having full body rashes. I had joint pain. I didn't even know you could feel joint pain when you're 21 years old.
21 years old?
Yes.
Yeah,
and I was like, I felt like I was gripping a steering wheel all night, like through a snowstorm. And I'd wake up in the morning, I couldn't open my hands. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
All sorts of gut issues. I mean, fatigue to where I couldn't get out of bed. It was crazy. And so I was never the sick kid growing up. So for me, it kind of seemed like it happened overnight. But as I look back, there were drops in the bucket over time. And so I was going from doctor to doctor, specialist to specialist. You know, I was going to the rheumatologist for joint stuff and autoimmune. I was going to the endocrinologist for thyroid and gastroenterologist for gut issues. And no one could really figure out what was going on. Everyone just wanted to try random prescriptions, procedures. And I just kind of felt convicted because here I am a nurse. My whole job is to advocate for patients, and I can't even advocate for myself.
Right.
And so anyway, I did that kind of whole circus hamster wheel for almost a year. It wasn't getting better. And sometimes I'd feel like maybe I'm taking 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back. And so it was awful.
That had to have been like a really scary time period.
It was, because I was never the sick kid.
Yeah.
And so my parents, I grew up kind of really healthy, and you always kind of go back to your roots in some sense or the other. And my mom was like, this is not you. I'm tired of seeing you this way. You know, you're supposed to be young and vibrant, and I was not. And so she really advocated for me to go to an alternative practitioner. And I was like, no, that's so woo-woo. I didn't learn that in nursing school. Like, that's for the birds. And because I really just trusted our medical system and never questioned it. And so I ended up going to a functional medicine doctor, and it changed my life. And she basically talked to me about everything from, were you a C-section baby? You know, were you the sick kid growing up? Did you ever have strep, mono, ear infections? Because she wanted to know about antibiotic use. And so she changed my diet. She did all sorts of testing. I finally had answers. She was able to get me off most of my prescriptions. Times and places for meds, times and places, but not when you're just medicating symptoms. And so basically that changed my life. And so functional medicine and my experience there is you really get to the root cause of an issue and you ask the why question. Why is someone having bloating? Why are they having acne versus just pill for the ill type approach of, cool, you have acne, well, let's put you on doxycycline, which is an antibiotic or birth control. And so rather than suppressing, you're really trying to look at the person as a whole. And I think our medical system's great for a lot of things, but where we're getting it wrong is prevention and being proactive. And then, of course, looking at lifestyle. And I remember being at the gastroenterologist being like, I've always eaten this way, so I don't think it's diet, but is there anything I could do for my gut? And he was like, no, it's not diet related. Let's just go ahead and do a colonoscopy and try this medication. And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, looking back, I have all my records and I'm like, I cannot believe that the first line of treatment was to start these meds and do a colonoscopy. And we didn't talk about diet. And I remember asking, not that I wanted to change my diet. I wasn't. But I was desperate.
It seemed like all the specialists, the gastro would be the one talking about the diet.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. I know sometimes, but with my symptoms, he was just like, no, it's not really diet related. And so anyway, functional medicine, I always tell people it changed my life, therefore changed the trajectory of my career.
Right.
But most people don't get into it because they're smart. Now people are getting ahead of the curve and they want to be proactive, but most people get into it because they're sick. And that was my story. And that was a lot of my colleagues' stories. The medical system failed them. So they had to advocate for themselves, and they found there's lots of words like integrative, holistic, functional.
Okay, so we use those terms kind of interchangeably.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got sick, you dove into that world, it helped you, it healed you.
Yeah.
How long did that process take once you kind of got on that train?
So it took time. I started to see changes that motivated me enough. It was almost like my healing was breadcrumbed. Like I'd change my diet and I'd cut out gluten, and I'm like, oh, this is affecting this. And I changed my personal care products. I mean, this is back in 2012, like way before it was cool. We're talking a long time ago when there's not a lot of resources, social media. And so it wasn't an overnight thing. And I always tell people it takes a long time for the body to get sick. And so we can't expect to heal overnight too. So I would say it took a good year, but every month, and it was so God just like encouraging me, like, I'd change my diet and I'd feel really strict and like, is this really going to work? And then I'd see enough change to where I'd be motivated to make another change.
Right.
And ultimately, I healed so much that I was like, I don't want to just be a nurse, which nurses are amazing, but I wanted to have more autonomy to help people. And at this time, I started working in functional medicine with she's a New York Times bestselling author and really renowned expert. And I got to learn a lot under her, Amy Myers. And so then that's when I was like, I want to use my license to do more. And so I became a nurse practitioner and started a practice here in Fort Worth. I co-founded a wellness center, and I was able to finally use the form of medicine and my gifts and my story to help others heal that way.
I bet that was so exciting once you'd gotten better and you're like, I can do this for my career, and I can build a business around this, and I can help a lot of people, and to go to work every day being passionate about what you're doing and knowing that you can actually help people. Okay, so is that when you started Taylor Duke's Wellness?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were doing that, and you were treating patients one-on-one for how long? 10, 15 years?
No.
22 to...
I started doing... I'm like, you make me feel old, Travis.
How long? Okay, so how long were you seeing...
You must just think I'm really experienced.
How long...
So,
I know you're younger than me, but...
2013 is when I kind of got into working as an RN. So yeah, I guess you're right. I'd been in that field for that long, but as far as owning my own practice, I opened it in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'd been in the functional medicine world. You're right. I'd been in the functional medicine world since 2013, just not practicing on my own.
Okay. That was when you were working for Dr. Myers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were growing Taylor Duke's Wellness. You were seeing patients.
Yeah.
You helped my wife. We don't have to get to that, but she obviously started loving you back then, and that's how I first found out about you. And we became friends through that and through our kids and school and stuff. And then so I know the next chapter of your story.
Yes.
But huge kind of bombshell went off
a
couple years ago. Tell folks about what you went through.
Yeah. Ultimate curveball of my life. So I had a thriving practice. I had 2 kids at this time. I had the wellness center, and because of the education that I do online, social media, I have a blog, just where I love educating people. I'm so passionate about education. And so a company reached out to me, full body MRI company called Pronuvo, and they were like, hey, and I was familiar with them because I'm always researching things for patients and, prevention and things like that. And so they said, hey, we're getting an Irving location first in Texas. We want you to come and get a scan. We'll gift it. And in exchange, would you just share about it? I didn't get paid. It was just free scan. That's a couple $1,000s. So yeah, why not? I had no concerns and got the curveball of my life. They found a brain tumor in that scan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Completely asymptomatic.
No symptoms at all.
Right. The picture of health and wellness, obviously helping a lot of people, and she had a brain tumor probably the whole time you had that practice open.
Yeah. They said it had been growing probably 8 to 10 years by the time we caught it, which was crazy. And the whole thing's just miraculous. Like, obviously, part of me is like, oh, I wish I never got the scan because it changed my life forever. But thank you, Lord, for showing me and providing the scan and giving us insight so I could intervene early. But yeah, it was totally shocking, especially when I got the news because I'm like, what? I know all the symptoms, headache, seizures, vision, hearing loss, balance. I went through all the different, list of things, emotional issues, personality changes, the things you see on Grey's Anatomy, and none of it was there. And so at first I was in denial and I was like, this couldn't be me. But after further follow-up imaging, sure enough, Taylor Dukes, the healthy nurse practitioner.
And how big was the tumor at the time?
Size of a plum.
Yeah.
Huge.
So how much longer do you think you could have gone before you started feeling symptoms?
It's so hard to say. I mean, honestly, I don't know. And the other question too is like, what if it just stopped growing because of my lifestyle? We'll never know. We're not God. We don't have the answer to those questions. But it haunted me for a long time thinking like, what if I was driving my kids and had a seizure?
Right.
We can't play the what if game. Like ultimately, I just trust the Lord that he revealed it in the right timing. But there were so many thoughts of like, when would I have become symptomatic? Or I was looking back trying to be like, was I symptomatic? And I didn't know. But we'll never know. But I'm just grateful when we found out when we did. But yeah, it'd been growing a long time.
Yeah. So do you trace that back to when you got sick in your 20s?
Absolutely. So when I first got diagnosed, it was like, what the heck? I know how to do a lot. Infertility, skin, gut issues, you name it. I can tackle it. I really didn't say no to much. But if it came to cancer, I would know nothing about that. I had no experience, no personal, professional experience. So I was like, I know nothing about this. And I sought out a lot of experts. And what I've learned in that time process is cancer is not an overnight thing. Yes, it can be an overnight diagnosis. Say that I had a seizure. Yes, my life changed overnight. However, it's a process in the body. And everyone has circulating tumor cells at any given point in time. I hate to freak you out, but in your body right now, you probably have some circulating tumor cells. But the way God created our bodies and immune systems, they go and attack those cancer cells. And so if they get rampant and our immune system is suppressed and we're stressed or have trauma or multiple contributing factors that decrease our immune system's response, that's when the cells go out of hand and then a tumor forms. And then it takes years for the tumor to even, cause someone to be symptomatic. And again, I can't broad spectrum say this about every type of cancer because we have blood cancers and different things like that. But generally speaking, it's an 8 to 10 year process.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Prenuvo scans, I'm guessing you're a big proponent of those now.
I'm a huge advocate.
How many folks have gotten those because of your story?
Thousands have. And I tell
Isn't
most
that
people,
wild,
they're
TD?
good. Yes, it is so crazy. And that's where I never would have chosen this, but I've seen how purposeful my story is and how much God's used it. And I guess I'll say thank you, Lord, because I trust him, but it's also been hard, But I've also, Prenuvo did this whole video of over 20 or 30 people that have had life-saving diagnosis using my code.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Holy
crazy.
cow.
Like true cancer, aneurysm, stuff like that. So that's where I'm like, that's profound.
Yeah.
So, and people that also didn't have symptoms.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy? And by the way, I've never made $1 from them. People are like, how much money? You're their best.
You got to be killing
You're
it.
their best marketing story. And I'm like, yeah, health and wellness practitioner,
Got the
no
affiliate
symptoms.
code and all that stuff.
No, I have a code. It's T-Dukes. It's $300 off the scan, but I've never made $1. Even filming videos, nothing. So I just want people to know that. I will promote the heck out of it because it saved my life, but never plan to make $1 from them.
Was your tumor, I guess you went and had surgery ultimately, right?
Yes.
Obviously, got the tumor out. How long between getting the diagnosis and going into surgery? What was that period like?
That's a good question. And it's kind of again, I do things different. That's a theme in my story. The Dukes do things different. But I got diagnosed September.
Is that an official family tagline?
It's one of our core values. We do things different. We're okay with it.
I could see Ryan reaffirming that every morning.
We try not to take too much pride in it because we are pretty different, but we're like, you know what? We're okay to be different. And honestly, we were at this fundraiser, and Tim Tebow was actually last year. He told us, we were talking about just countercultural and the way I was approaching cancer and considering homeschool at the time. And he said, I love that you're doing it different. Jesus did things differently. And so you don't want to be part of the culture. You don't want to do what everyone else does. And so we were like, yeah, that's a core value of ours. We're okay with doing things different.
I love it. So how did the Dukes do things different when the brain tumor diagnosis came in?
Yeah. So, the question of how long it took between when I got diagnosed to surgery. So it was 5 months, which is crazy. Most people would want to rush to surgery, especially knowing they have a mass in their head.
Most people do that in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we slowed down. I mean, I also have to back up and say it was September. my son was 10 months old. Bo was 10 months old. So it was his 1-year birthday in a couple months. Oh, this is where I'll cry with my kids. And it was our wedding anniversary, my birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the first for Bo, holidays when he's like 1 year old. So for us, it felt like, let's get through the end of the year if we can. And also, I didn't want to rush into surgery in fear. I never want to make decisions in fear, but I didn't want to rush into surgery knowing that I wasn't symptomatic. And I had to do all this testing. So they made me undergo really intense situations where they'd flash lights in my eyes, basically EEG testing to see if I was at risk for seizures. Because if I was, then I don't want to drive or need to get on seizure meds. So we did CTs. We made sure there were no blood vessels that were, so we did a lot of measures to make sure that surgery didn't have to happen next week. But ultimately what we did is I had peace. There was a cancer treatment center in Mexico and I'd always known about it. And I always said, if I got diagnosed or a family member, we'd go. And it's Hope for Cancer. And it's in Cancun, which sounds so sketchy, but it's not. It's like health camp. And they do a lot of integrative things to either shrink tumors or prevent recurrence. And so during those 5 months, I went to California, I went to Mexico, I did all sorts of treatments. And
so that's something I've always wondered is why, place sounds amazing, but why did you have to go to Mexico to get integrative care for cancer? Do we not have that in the U.S.? Or is it just...
It's not. You really have to seek it out. So now that I've been in this world for a couple years, I know a lot more. At the time, I really didn't know anything, and I'd always known about that. And so I felt like it's one place that does a lot of encompassing treatments. And there's not a ton of places. There are clinics in the States, but they make it a little bit harder, with the schedule. And I love that Mexico was they do have a lot of treatments there that they do have here in the States. It's just hard to find it all in one place. You're driving across town for your red light bed, and then you're hyperbaric. And so it was ease, functionality, but it was the only one I knew of at the time. But then they also do offer certain treatments like stem cells that you're not able to get access to here. B17, it's a B vitamin, just like B6, B9, B12. But it's illegal here in the United States. And it's proven, there's tons of documented research that it has anti-tumor properties. And so it's the one B vitamin that is illegal, which makes you really wonder why.
Why would it be illegal?
They say that it can be toxic in high amounts, but it's actually naturally derived from apricot kernels, seeds. And so it's a naturally occurring B vitamin.
Right.
So anyway, that is one thing that I did know, that they had access to those infusions there.
Oh, that's interesting. I like to ask the question why, too, Taylor, as you know. Okay, so you did this integrative care in Mexico, and so it's literally a red light beds.
Yeah, so it's like health camp every day. You go 6 days a week. It was almost a full-time job. Yeah. You take Sundays off, which is awesome, but you start the day with worship.
Were your kids down there too?
So the first week, I had a wean Bo. For moms listening, that was really emotional. And so I went a week with my mom, and it was just us two, and I weaned Bo from breastfeeding, which was, and then I kind of got in the hang of things, and I couldn't do 2 weeks without my kids. No way, heck no. Right. And especially they were my why, so it's like, I want them. Every time I talk about my kids, I want to cry. But
I get it,
they're my why. They're why I'm doing the things that I do. And so I wanted them to be there.
Yeah.
And so they came the second week with Ryan. And so
I think I remember this.
Yeah. I was the crazy girl that brought the whole family to Mexico.
Taylor's oldest son is actually my future son-in-law. So
yes, Hattie and Ryder.
Kind of one of my kids.
Arranged marriage, but also by choice.
We're bringing back arranged marriage. It was their idea. We're just
facilitating it and encouraging it.
Yeah, we're fans of it. Okay, so Ryan, the kids come down. So you're there for a while. Mm-hmm. How well did that kind of treatment work for you?
Really well. So like I said, it was health camp every day. We would do hyperbaric. We did all the things that cancer hates. It hates oxygen. It hates acidity. It hates alkaline environments. So I would drink special hydrogen water. I would do red light therapies, hyperbaric, high-dose vitamin C infusions, B17 infusions. It truly was like health camp every day. But then I also went to California to see Dr. Canali, and she put me on all sorts of things, even something, I don't know if you know about this, but it's called repurposed meds. Have you heard about that? Mm-hmm. So there's certain drugs that are FDA approved for the treatment of something. And then when it's a repurposed med, it's repurposed for an off-label use. So say that, Yeah. So anyway, I did a lot of repurposed meds that aren't technically approved for the purpose of cancer, but my body tested through some frequency testing in labs that it would do well for me. And so I got on some repurposed meds. That's where times and places for meds, actual prescriptions. And then in between diagnosis and brain surgery, which I said was 5 months, we actually shrunk the tumor in half, which is incredible and miraculous and really, really hard to do.
That's amazing. Okay, so did you know, so obviously there was imaging done before your surgery, so you knew it was shrunk.
Yeah.
Did you consider postponing surgery even more, or what was the thought process
So
then?
this is actually really crazy. I didn't know it had shrunk until after surgery because I did my pre-op
Oh, that's
MRI
interesting.
in Arizona the day before surgery where they map out the brain and everything. And I hadn't done an MRI there before. I'd always done everything locally. So they had my brain mapped out. But I also think that that was just a God thing because we also didn't think it was cancer, by the way. We just knew it was a brain tumor. I was going to hope for cancer because it was a tumor, but we didn't have pathology.
Right.
And so everyone said, well, because it's not enhancing and lighting up on imaging and because you're not symptomatic, it's probably low growing, not tumor. Slow growing and not a tumor.
So, because do they not know until it's out and they biopsy it? Okay.
Yeah. And so until we have pathology. And so I also feel like if I knew, maybe I would have said, well, let's not get surgery. Let's just keep going. And so when they got it out and they got all of it out, thank God, it's just taking a time bomb because it grows within the brain. It doesn't grow on top of the brain. So they found out it was cancer. It was grade 3. So it was quicker growing, which is like, oh, good thing we got it out. So I actually found out a week after surgery. You know, my mom was there helping, getting all my reports. And I saw the measurements of the tumor and I was like, that's a lot smaller than I thought. And I went and pulled my previous reports and it had shrunk in half. But I didn't know that till after surgery. So it was really encouraging because it was like, oh, all the work we did paid off. But regardless, I prepared my body so well for surgery. And
Right.
I was out of ICU. I was discharged in 24 hours, walking 6 hours after brain surgery. I mean, so you have to look at all the things that I did to also prepare my body for recovery too.
And so since surgery, obviously great recovery, you still have some lingering, obviously, effects of brain surgery and everything you went through. What is your, I mean, obviously it's not medical advice, but people dealing with serious medical conditions like a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you tell people nowadays that reach out to you? And as far as, you know, exploring the integrative, the functional medicine world?
Yeah. Well, first, I always tell people to don't lose hope because especially when something like cancer is spoken over you, it feels like a death sentence.
Yeah.
And I felt that to my core. Like, I know why people believe and come into agreement that they're going to die because it just feels like a death sentence. So first, have hope. 2, don't just think that you have to go to all your traditional, like all your options are chemo, radiation, surgery, and immunotherapy because there's so much more. But you're not going to get offered that by the traditional oncology model just because those providers weren't trained. And quite frankly, they'll think you're crazy. And a lot of them will fire you because they're like, you're doing things that we're not supportive of. So I would say advocate. One of the best things I tell people to do is read The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. It's a book. And people, and also like, it's not just a genetic thing. People think they're doomed and it's only genetics. It's not. 1 in 3 men or 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer and 1 in 2 men. Those statistics are sobering. And it's not just a genetic issue.
Yeah, it used to not be like that, right?
No.
Okay.
No, our genetics haven't changed that much.
No.
So it really is a metabolic approach. And so that's where that book is really helpful. I have a ton of resources. You know, we get questions all the time. I can't help everybody.
Yeah.
It'd be a full-time job, but we have an integrative oncology resources on our website of clinics, of books, of providers, therapies. Awesome. So yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the state of health in America.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Right. So you said 1 in 2 men will face a cancer diagnosis at some point in their life, 1 in 3 women. I ripped a list of today's statistics from Casey and Callie Means. I know you're fans of them.
Yeah, they're awesome.
From Good Energy. Talking about cancer, young adult cancers like yours, up 79%. 60% of American adults have some kind of chronic illness. We have 74% of American adults are overweight or obese. 77% of young adults are unfit to serve in the military.
It's crazy.
I know you know all these statistics, but every time
no, even hearing this, it's more sobering. Like I forget how.
I mean, and
it is.
It's everything. I think Peter Attia calls them the 4 horsemen. You know, all these different chronic illnesses, diabetes. 50% of adults are pre-diabetic or have type 2 diabetes. That used to only be 1%
It's insane.
in 1950, and now we're up to 70%. 30% of teenagers are pre-diabetic, which is scary. 18% of teenagers have fatty liver disease, which used to be like only for late-stage alcoholics.
It's horrible.
1 in 36 kids, autism diagnosis. That used to be 1 in 1,500 just 20 years ago. And that's without changing the screening or the definition of autism.
Yeah, my grandfather's like, what is that? I'm like, oh, I forget. You don't even know that. Your generation doesn't even know.
Right. Infertility going up, sperm counts going down, and life expectancy is declining in a country that spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world. Highest infant and maternal mortality rates in the developed world. And you read all that, it's like, what the hell is going on with health in America?
Got to question everything.
What's the problem, Taylor?
I think it's multiple contributing factors, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the one answer. I always say it's drops in the bucket, you know? And so, I mean, look at our food supply. It is so hybridized. It is sprayed with so many chemicals. I mean, it is truly insane. The cosmetic industry, there's been over 75,000 synthetic chemicals allowed that are not studied, let alone not studied, but also in conjunction with other things, you know, especially for women. When you think about how many beauty products are put on their skin from the second they wake up to even just walking out the door, we have so many endocrine disrupting chemicals. We have pesticides, fertilizers. I mean, it's just we're inundated with toxins on a level that we've never been inundated before. And nothing's the same. Our air quality is not the same. Our water quality, our food. Talk about EMFs. Like that's the hidden toxin. That's something that I'm really passionate about. And again, I'm not Amish. I don't like live, you know, and just like breathe air and whatever, you know. And
you are getting more Amish. We'll talk about that in a little while.
I am. I'm actually like, dang, the Amish are doing a lot of things right.
Yeah, no
Let's
kidding.
get back to some things. But
they live in community and they take care of each other.
Yes, and there's a lot of things they do right. But I could go off on that. But it's one of those things. And the invisible toxin of EMFs, you know, our bodies are just inundated with so many stressors. And we're not getting enough sunshine. We're living super stressed lifestyles. I mean, our creator created us to enjoy creation. And how many hours a day are people getting outside? Unless you're the Pattersons and you live on land and you're just free for all. But truly, I mean, we're living sedentary lifestyles. We're exposed to artificial light. We're stressed. Our food is junk. You know, medically, we're really quick to medicate people and not ask the why question and, you know, get to the root cause of things. And then by the time you're 25, 30, you're on all these prescriptions that also have side effects. And it's just, it's a recipe for disaster.
So like cancer specifically, let's talk about cancer. Your average person will say cancer is just, it runs in the family. And so if my dad had it or my grandpa had it, that's just my destiny. What is your opinion on that? Is it genetic or is it environmental? Is it something that maybe a certain person's predisposed to some kind of cancer, but we can do things to try to avoid those genes being triggered or whatever that's called in the medical world?
Epigenetics. We have the ability to affect the expression of our genes through the way we live, the way we manage stress, the things we're exposed to. And I think a lot of people just say like, oh, I have the genetics, so I'm doomed. And that's just, it is what it is. But reality is it's not that. Like you can go look up PubMed articles all about this all day long. This isn't just a thought process in the integrative world. So I think we have a lot more control too over our health and our decisions. And I always say that lifestyle loads the gun, or genetics load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that even if you are predisposed, it doesn't mean that those genes are going to express themselves. And so people should feel empowered to know that. But yeah, there's very few cancers that, you know, there are definitely some genetic predispositions with certain things, but I think it's a lot of people assume that's the only thing. And the reality is that's just not the case. And we're seeing a huge rise in cancers, especially among young people. The American Cancer Society actually shared that last year in 2024, it's the first time that there will be over 2 million cancer diagnoses. That was their projection. And it happened in a year.
2 million fresh new diagnoses. Wow.
It's insane. I mean, it truly is.
And more young people are getting cancer. I mean, we're talking about age 20s, 30s.
And everyone, you know, obviously since I've shared my story so publicly, I've heard about it a lot. And I've actually had to guard my heart a lot because I can't connect with every single person that has cancer. I mean, it's truly, my counselor was like, you're a helper, you want to help people, but you have to tell people, like, you can't hear about one more sad cancer story because it truly, so just naturally sharing my story, I hear about a lot more.
Yep.
And I've started Facebook groups for people to connect and I hear about it there. But even regardless of if I had cancer or not, Ryan and I have been affected by more friends, family members getting cancer in their 20s and 30s.
Same. Yeah.
That like, regardless of my story, we would still know about their cancer diagnosis. And it's sobering.
Yeah, and so you trace that to, okay, so we have these genes, we're predisposed to things, and we can go this way or that way. And a lot of people intentionally are getting a lot of toxins, right? So it's either in our diets, it's in the things we put on our bodies, and just things in our environment. So let's break kind of those down. Let's talk about food for a second.
Yeah.
And then food and drinks.
Yeah. Alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen, by the way, if we want to talk about drinks.
Like booze, alcohol?
Yes.
Really?
Most people don't realize that. Go look at the World Health Organization.
Does that include Blanco tequila?
Sure does. I really think that alcohol is going to be the secondhand smoke of our generation. Like, I think we're going to look back and be like, everyone used to do it. We're already seeing a shift. But even when I was doing cancer research, I started doing a deep dive into what are the class 1 carcinogens known. You know, so we'll talk about it, but that's food and beverage.
But young people aren't drinking as much anymore, right? Like 20-year-olds, they're starting to because of this kind of awareness on health.
I really think so. I feel like I'm seeing a shift. I really am. Yeah.
Me too.
And people are just realizing, like, I feel better when I don't, and I sleep better, and our bodies are just more sensitive because we're inundated with a lot.
Okay, so we're learning more about alcohol, but like drinks, sports drinks, things like that. You know, all these drinks are changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at it like I don't mean to call out brands, but if you look at a bottle of Gatorade from back in the day, it had like 4 ingredients in it, like sugar and lemons and 2 other things. Like
things some electrolytes.
Things I could pronounce. Now, if you look at the ingredient list, it's got like 15 different things. What is your opinion on why they've added so many different ingredients? Is it just so we can make the product cheaper?
Cheaper, mass production.
It stays on the shelf longer.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so sad we're not studying the research and the long-term effects of some of these chemicals, especially at the rate at which they're consumed. And so even talk about Gatorade, and again, I don't like calling out brands either, but kudos to McDonald's. Back in the 80s, literally their fries were potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. Like that's it. And now if you look at the ingredients, it's all these things you can't pronounce, tons of chemicals. And so our food system truly has been hijacked. And we have to read labels. We have to advocate for ourselves. And we honestly have to just do things different. Because if you want standard American results, then keep eating the standard American diet. Like, I don't want to be part of those statistics.
So what are the things on like ingredient labels that you really want people to avoid when it comes to, you know, just buying typical groceries?
Great question. So processed seed oils, inflammatory oils, so things like canola, safflower, corn, cottonseed oil, that's not meant to be consumed. And of course, high fructose corn syrup, and what else? Food dyes, those are really big, especially for children with neuro issues, developmental, ADD, ADHD. A lot of and honestly, chemicals. If you can't pronounce it, I always tell people, shop the perimeter of the grocery store. The foods that don't even need an ingredient label. An apple, you know, it might have a SKU number, but like we're not having to read. And we, of course, still buy packaged foods. We have a pantry.
Right.
But when I look at ingredient labels, I try to avoid the chemicals, the high fructose corn syrup, any additives, inflammatory oils, and I really just try to look for ingredients that I know and can understand and pronounce.
It's pretty wild. Have you looked at like the history of some of these food companies, how it traces back to the cigarette companies in the 80s
I've
and 90s?
heard. I don't know specifically, but enlighten me.
There's stories about I think Callie Means talks about it a lot, about how when the cigarette companies were kind of being attacked, they had piles and piles of money, and they shifted and they started buying food companies.
Yes.
And so they had all their scientists who were used to making cigarettes really addictive, obviously, and they, you know, sent them out to make the food more addictive. And so the rise of ultra-processed foods took off, you know, in the 90s and 2000s. Food's more addictive. We eat more. We get fatter. We spend more money. It's a mess.
And we're sicker. It's just part of the system. I did hear that. I think that was on the Tucker podcast, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I want to say I remember hearing that. And that was actually news to me. I was like, I did not know that.
Yeah. Anna and I, instead of watching shows, we just like watch like
health podcasts.
Yeah.
Y'all are nerds like us.
Okay, so that's toxic foods and drinks. What about things in our homes and things in our environment? Let's start with the house.
Yeah.
Are things in our house making us sick?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that comes to mind that's a really easy swap that most people identify with without knowing exactly what chemicals are plastics. So plastics specifically, you'll see a lot of BPA free on a lot of plastic things. So that's like a movement to make it cleaner. But plastics are a chemical, and especially when we're ingesting them on a daily basis, and it's the micro things that add up. You know, it's not like you're going to eat a plastic cup or something like that, but it's the micro exposures that our body can't filter and detox, but also a lot of endocrine disruptors. And so what does that mean? Hormone disruptors. So there's a lot of chemicals that mimic hormones production in our body, specifically estrogen. So estrogen's really hard. It can lead to liver detoxification issues. It can, you know, mess up all sorts of hormones. It just mimics estrogen in our body when we shouldn't have that much. It's also what birth control can do as well. And so when we're exposed to a lot of chemicals that are endocrine disrupting, that's kind of the process there. And so again, you see all these allergies and asthma, and there's multiple contributing factors, but it was always so amazing when I'd work with patients in my practice and I'd be working with the wife and she would make changes, and all of a sudden, you know, say that it was laundry detergent. And I'd say, get rid of fragrance. That's another thing. That's like secondhand smoke, truly. It's so toxic in our homes, like candles and smelly everything. You know, kids' clothes are smelling these days, and cards, and you don't realize how much it's in, and makeup and personal care products. And so the wife would just get rid of fragrance, say the laundry detergent. You know, she'd switch from the Tide to the cleaner version. And the husband's, all of a sudden, his allergies would go away. You know, and so it was always a byproduct of just swapping little things. But I always say, you know, we don't have control of everything in our world. And so start with the home. Start with the things that you consume on a daily basis. So get clean air in your home. Clean air doesn't mean you have to get the fanciest air purifiers. It just means get the chemicals out, because that alone will decrease the toxin exposure. Cleaning up laundry detergent, that's on your towels, your sheets, your clothes. That's one swap that can make a significant difference for the whole family. And then, of course, you can get into the nitty gritty of dishwasher detergent and just all the things, and it takes time, but you can do your home.
It could be overwhelming if you're like, you look at your house and like identify all the things from your toothbrush to your laundry. But you can make a couple simple changes. Probably have 80-20 principle probably applies to this like it does everything else.
And it's over time. Some people, if you have the resources and that's your personality, go for it. But it's swap one thing at a time. When you run out of your shampoo, find a cleaner version, So, and that's where I think sometimes a non-toxic world can be so intimidating and so overwhelming because people feel like, oh, I just will never do it right, And it's like that perfection isn't the goal, but progress is. And so if you can make progress, you don't strive to be perfect. That's more stressful anyway. And that stress is bad for your health too. But start with your home because that's where you are sleeping. You're there a lot of times, whether you work in the home or not. You spend a lot of time there.
You talked about EMFs.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be frequencies, cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, radiation, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the science saying on that about like what these Wi-Fi boosters are doing to us and the cell phones in our pockets? And
so a lot of people say, well, we don't know, there's not enough research. But actually, when I got diagnosed with the brain tumor, I'm like, well, could this be anything related? I'm right-handed. I used to sleep with my phone on my bedside table and, so I actually did a lot of research. And if you trace it back, there's actually tons of studies that link tumors and gliomas, specifically what I had, to rats when they're exposed to high doses or consistent, even lower doses of radiation. And there's actually, now that I'm talking to a lawyer, there's class action lawsuits from the 90s of the first call centers of wireless headsets. And a lot of the family members have passed away of brain cancer, but families are still together advocating, saying no, like he had a tumor on the left side and that's where he wore his headset. So you can go look into this. It's just not popular. It's not out there. There's a great book called The Invisible Rainbow if anyone wants to dig deeper. And it really is overwhelming and it's hard. And again, I live my life. I have a cell phone, like we have Wi-Fi. We did hardwire our house when I got diagnosed because we went to great lengths. Again, I'll do anything for my family and for myself. But it's really, my family motivates me to live a long life. But what's interesting too is when everyone was locked up in their houses during COVID 2020, never forget, all these 5G towers started popping up. And so we don't even know the long-term effects of that. And we don't know safety. But I do think it's important that it messes with our mitochondria at a cellular level. It really does alter DNA. And so, again, it's just another threat. I'm not saying it's the cause of everything, but it's something to consider and minimize exposure when possible.
There's so many variables at play, like you mentioned. So you got a lot of ingredients in our food. You've got toxins in the environment. And so the problem with that, when you have so many variables, that each one of them can raise their hand and say, well, you're never going to be able to prove that I'm the bad guy, right? And because you can't prove it for sure, then why bother with it? I mean, we talk, you look at the official U.S. food pyramid, and it's a disaster.
It's crazy.
And 90% of the grocery store is a disaster. And it's like, why aren't we incentivized as a country to clean this stuff up?
Yeah.
And make healthy food more affordable for people and things like that. It just seems like the incentive model is very skewed.
It is.
Like the healthcare system is incentivized for people not to get better.
Yeah.
For kids to get sick.
Because they want you to come back for more prescriptions.
It was RFK Jr. who said that the most profitable thing for the healthcare system is a sick child.
Yeah.
Which is just terrible.
It's horrible.
Just a terribly sad thing to say. Well, maybe the tide is turning because of people like you.
I feel a shift for the first time. And again, I've been in this world before it was cool. I was the one that was like, I'm going to let my freak flag fly because I believe in it. It's changed my life. But yeah, I, for the first time, truly in my career and in my just personal and professional life, I feel like tides are changing. And I feel like that is the one blessing of COVID. I mean, God uses everything. And so I think one of the ways, and that's just waking a lot of people up. People are asking questions. People don't want to be sick.
Yeah.
People are doing things differently. And there's a movement and a shift happening. And I know it's going to take a lot of time, from legal standpoint and passing things and when it goes into effect. But I think it's not going to be overnight. But the fact that people are talking about it and advocating and even consumer demand, we're seeing restaurants, we're seeing brands listen to the consumer because more people are coming together saying, I don't want seed oils, And so I think a movement's for sure happening.
What about school lunches? Are those getting cleaned up?
Oh my gosh, they're terrible. I think Texas is leading the way, right? We're passing some legislation, but again, it starts with what we feed our kids, and it's just so sad. It's like, why are we not focusing on health promotion and disease prevention? We're literally feeding the beast, and the obesity rates and all that childhood epidemic rates. And yeah, it starts at schools, and at home too. But yeah, schools are just awful, man. Even back when I was in schools, I can't say it was healthy then. It's not like all of a sudden it's changed, but
Aren't they getting like Coca-Cola at lunch?
are they?
Something
I don't know.
like
I
that.
haven't been in the school system, so I don't know. But that enrages me. Like how? What?
Yeah. Well, I think I know how. But, the other thing about food, too, is that I think is really interesting that you don't hear a lot about is that, and you talked about like getting back to the way we were designed and our nature. Like my kids are obsessed with strawberries. And it's like, okay, that seems like a good problem to have. And it is, it's fine. But they want strawberries year round. Well, strawberries aren't a winter crop. They're not a fall crop. And so those strawberries come from probably a long way away. They're not coming from our garden. I'll tell you that. And it's like, by the time the strawberry gets from wherever it's plucked and however they, get that strawberry to grow in a unnatural time, wherever it is, and then get it all the way to my house, how long has it been sitting in a plastic cart in a hot truck or whatever? And like what nutritional value has that strawberry retained, right? And just like, it'd be cool to see, kind of a plug for my wife here, but people getting back to like gardening and growing crops and just like getting into the rhythm and the season of food.
Seasonal, yeah.
I think there's someone that doesn't eat food that's more than a certain miles away from their house because of that. So yeah, I completely agree with kind of just getting back to just the natural.
Yes,
way of
get back
things.
to basics. We overcomplicate it. Like eat real food,
Let's talk about glyphosate. Speaking of farming,
Yeah.
there's been lawyers, not me, but several lawyers going after Roundup for several years. And I did some research on that kind of to grill you with some questions. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, let's go.
But glyphosate, you talked about rats, how they can do obviously more testing on rats. And they can show that it's carcinogenic for rats. The International Agency for Research on Cancer and the World Health Organization have both said that glyphosate probably causes
Lymphoma.
cancer. Yeah,
And cancer.
non-Hodgkin's
Lymphoma specifically, yeah.
Yeah, non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Probably, meaning more likely than not, which is enough for me not to use that weed killer,
Yep.
obviously. But then you look at the EPA, and they're like, oh, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and aren't there a lot of class action lawsuits from it? And there's been like settlements with Monsanto and different people?
Yes. Monsanto being the former Roundup producer. Yeah, and now Bayer owns it, and Bayer's a huge company spending a lot of money. And so now I'm seeing bills at state legislators across the country where these glyphosate manufacturers are asking for immunity from liability for these lawsuits. And generally speaking, anytime people are down to the legislature paying, lobbyists and asking for immunity
and protection.
Kind of a red flag.
Yep. Same with the vaccine. That's what they did back in the late 80s. It's like, how can you be protected? It raises questions for concern, for sure. And there's no doubt a link. And even on the World Health Organization, and I have tons of posts where we state the source, and it's like kind of the stuff that I talk about there is like super weird when you talk about parasites and cancer and people are like, what? But I'm like, no, go to the American Cancer Society, go to International Journal of Cancer. This is not woo-woo. Go to the WHO and you will see that there are links between parasites and certain cancers and even viruses. We know that HPV can lead to cervical cancer. So when I talk about all these viral titers and parasites and pathogens and all these things and heavy metals, it's like, actually, no, there are links, and asbestos and mold. Like there are actually links to certain types of cancer. It just doesn't sound mainstream. So I sound a little crazy when I talk about it, but when I go cite the sources and people see like, oh, wow, viruses and Epstein-Barr virus. I mean, a lot of people have been exposed to it. We have to support our immune system, but that's a carcinogen. There's a proven link. But so then my question is, and my challenge to a lot of people is, why aren't we looking at how we can correct the immune system? Why are we just focusing on kill with radiation and chemo and further disruption? There are times and places for both. Don't get me wrong. Like I had surgery. I'm not just eating food, hoping I'm healed, praying and doing a rain dance in the garden. I'm very much like I'm for medicine and it has places, but we're so reactive and we're not looking at what are the causes and how can we mitigate the cause to get our immune system to do what it was created to do. Yeah.
When I hear you talk about parasites, I get kind of creeped out. And
full moon's coming up in 2 weeks, TP. It's not too late. I know it's woo-woo. Trust me. Even me being in the functional medicine world, I was like, people overdo it. And then I start looking at the research.
But like I get it. Which is why I get freaked out and creeped out.
Well, and we deworm our pets. Every other country deworms, but why don't we in America? Makes you wonder.
We do everything special here in America.
Yeah.
It's working out great so far.
No, that's why we're countercultural people. That's why we're doing things different.
Right. Okay, so if someone's like new to hearing about you and new to like thinking about this, like, okay, I need to try to clean up. You talked about obviously shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, and obviously I agree with that. But what's like your main tip?
Where to start?
Like where to start? Like if you were going to do just 3 things to change your lifestyle, this will probably go a long way to help you out. Like what are the main things?
Well, and I always like to remind people, like, again, you're going to hear someone like me or see my articles and feel like, oh my gosh, it's too much. I can't do it. So start somewhere, start feasible. You know, everyone's going to have different budgets and finances. And just because it's expensive doesn't mean, I know families of 5 on one income that's, you know, they're able to do things. You can use water and vinegar to clean your floors. And so when it comes to practical things, I would say clean up your home, you know, the choices that you can because you spend a lot of time there. Clean up your nutrition and focus on stress and sleep. That is so undervalued and underrated, but our bodies restore, we detox, we repair, and we're living such stressful, fast-paced lives that like we can't keep up. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that's really boring, but I always tell people get back to basics. Clean up your food, clean up your water, you know, sleep more, focus on stress, get outside.
Sleep is awesome.
It is, but it's like, you know, the things people want to overcomplicate it. And what product do I do for this? And there's times and places for that, but like get back to basics, you know? And obviously with my story, like I'm doing a lot more to prevent cancer recurrence because I am cancer free, you know, and I've been healed for a couple years, praise God, but I'm still doing more. So people look to me like, oh, I'm not doing enough. And it's like, no, I'm doing it because I have a crazy medical history, but start somewhere and we don't have to overcomplicate it. But really cleaning up your nutrition, I feel like is so huge and that will move mountains and you will feel a difference.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's talk about insurance, for example. Let's talk about insurance. When you went to Mexico and you did this integrative cancer care, I'm guessing that was not covered by insurance.
Sadly not.
I deal with insurance companies every day, so I already knew the answer to that question. So you had to come up with the means on your own to do that. And obviously people are in different situations and not everyone either has the money or, you know, I guess you can ask friends and family for donations for something like that. But why aren't insurance companies more incentivized to prevent problems?
Well, there's a for-profit model, you know, and they make money when people are sick. And so unpopular opinion, but it's true. And people like to focus on providers. Like, they don't take very much time with me and they don't spend very much time with me. And it's actually, you have to go back to the insurance model because providers have to see a certain amount of people to make money to be, you know, to submit for reimbursement. And so and
you saw that when you were in the conventional medical world.
For sure. Yeah. And so that's why the only time I practice was cash pay. Not because I want to rip people off, not because I'm trying to make huge profits. It's like I cannot ethically, knowing what I know, wanting to help people and get to the root cause, do that in 15 minutes. Like I just can't. I'd be doing a disservice to people trying to get reimbursed by insurance. And so I would only see 6 to 7 patients a day.
And when you say 15 minutes, like that's dictated by the insurance companies.
Yes.
They say like you were
reimbursement.
For this. Yeah.
Well, and it's also like someone could see 10, 15-minute visits, but they're not going to make money. So in order for providers to make money, they have to see 20, 40 patients a day, which then it's just shuffle, pill for the ill type model. But yeah, insurance is not paying for health promotion, disease prevention. And so, which is really, really sad because I feel like ultimately, if you thought about it, they'd save money in the end. If they were intervening and talking about nutrition and incentivizing doctors to do that, then they would not have to rely on their diabetes medication. But we're not. We're reactive. We're not proactive. But yeah, providers, it's really sad. They can't spend the time that they want with patients.
Yeah.
Because they have to see a certain amount of patients to make their ends meet and pay their overhead and make money.
Yeah, it is a skewed model for sure. You know, one of the trends I'm seeing, which I like, is people being able to use their HMOs for some of this stuff, some health and wellness stuff. HSAs, excuse me. Did I say HMOs?
Yeah.
HSAs. What do I know? But to basically use tax-free dollars to spend on things that can help prevent some illnesses or treat illnesses, I guess, in unconventional ways.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it's sad that all the good stuff is out of pocket. Like, even body work. You know, I went and saw an osteopath today and it's like, he was amazing and it was 30 minutes. It wasn't this 2-hour visit, but he was able to spend the time with me. And I would rather pay cash to pay for good quality. And that's sad that that's not affordable because for all the people that do pay for insurance, they're not, you know, insurance is great for emergencies and traumas. Like being a level 1 trauma ICU nurse, which I was for a little bit, the cost of that and the meds and the level of care and the specialists you need in your case, you need insurance for that, or you could be in debt for the rest of your life, you know, if you have a even 3-week ICU stay. And so I think insurance is very helpful for acute, emergent situations, but it's not very good or for health promotion.
I agree with that. All right, Taylor Dukes Wellness. So the company, what does Taylor Dukes Wellness do now? Are you still seeing patients or?
I retired.
Yeah.
I tell people I retired. And you know what? I love, and I worked so hard to get to that place, and God used it. But I got to the point where, we had a huge wait list, which was such a blessing. I hired multiple providers, and it was great. And we were helping a lot of people, and we did help a lot of people, and we still are. But it got to a point where, for me, I was like, I know I'm not going back to patient care. I got to take care of myself. I want to be there for my family. And if I care for everyone else, it'll be at the expense of me and my family. So I ultimately made the decision to close down my practice and walk away from the wellness center that I founded, which was hard because I was so passionate about it, but God just made it so clear. And at this time, I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I was always passionate about educating and equipping people and empowering them with information. Like, before anything, I'm an education-based brand. But we've since formulated our own products. And as a mom, I want to provide healthier versions of things. So I don't want to be a Grinch. I want my kids to drink hot chocolate and lemonade, but I'm not going to give them Swiss Miss and Country Time.
Okay.
So we sell supplements and nutritional products now, and it's an online brand.
Do you ever? I remember when we were hanging out with y'all, and you're like, it was you or Ryan, like, yeah, we got this vitamin coming out or something, supplement coming out. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I just thought it was going to be like a multivitamin. And then, like, bam, it's like electrolytes and protein powders. And we got the sports drinks, and we got lots of supplements, lots of vitamins.
Yeah.
Like, how did you went from like 0 to 60 in this like supplement world? It seems like it's very successful. We love it. Obviously, we're big users of a lot of your products.
Thanks for your support.
The chocolate, I will plug the chocolate protein. It is the best.
So good. It's my
chocolate
favorite
protein ever. You mix that with a little bit of raw milk if you can get your hands on it. And I call it the power couple.
I love that.
I have that every morning. Why is raw milk so hard to find, by the way?
Because it's illegal.
Yeah, why is it illegal?
Don't ask me. Ask the people that are making the decisions. It's crazy. Well, actually, it got a bad rap. When we tried to mass produce milk and get it to people, they pasteurize it because it would preserve it, but we're killing all the nutrients and the enzymes.
Yeah.
And so, but I will say, I'll also say you have to test milk. So if you're getting raw milk, you want it to be from someone like where we get it from. We have a milk dealer, by the way, that they test it, right? And so, but it doesn't kill all the nutrients. And so I think that raw milk is going to come back. I think it's going to be less harder to find. But it is unfortunate. It's all the good stuff, Like, why? Why is that illegal? Why is B17 illegal? It makes you just wonder certain things.
You have to go to like a special milk drop every 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
like
we got a dealer. We got a milk dealer.
Yeah, got a milk guy. That's funny. Okay, so let's shift gears. I'm talking about running a business. You and I are both entrepreneurs, and talk about being an entrepreneur. What have you learned about business? I mean, I'm sure you didn't learn this in medical school, nursing school, TCU. So what have you learned about business over the years, TD?
God, that's a loaded question. I don't know, TP. I mean, I've always been like, looking back, my dad was shocked. He was like, what do you mean you're going to nursing school? Like, what? Because he saw me more of as a business person, which now I'm using both, but I would always be like doing lemonade stands or crushing up rocks, being like, I have special crystals for sale. Right. So I think I am entrepreneurial. I didn't realize that till later in life, but man, I think people assume, and love my friends, but they're like, owning your own business, you have so much freedom and flexibility. Oh my gosh, no, it's a grind. It never stops.
Yeah.
But it's so fun,
especially
and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Especially in the beginning.
Oh, and you're wearing a million hats. People are like, look at where you are now. I'm like, yeah, it's such a blessing. But well, you should have seen me with a 3-month-old. I would get ready. We have no family here. I had no childcare at the time. I'd be getting ready, like putting Ryder in his stroller, singing him songs. I mean, it just, it's not as sexy as people think it is. But I think when you're wired this way, there's no other choice. Like, I love the freedom and flexibility that it provides me to be mom, and also have to have boundaries. But it's the best. But we also have taken a lot of risks too, and Ryan calls it calculated risks. And for me, if I have peace, like, people are like, how do you make your decisions? I'm like, honestly, I'm prayerful about it. If I have peace, that's so far. I didn't even know how to use Excel spreadsheets. So I'm probably not the person to get business advice from. I feel like I've just been blessed, and my business has grown in insane ways that we never thought.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's a grind. You have to wear a lot of different hats in the beginning, but it's worth it, you know?
And, having that underlying passion for what it is that you're doing takes care of a lot of this.
Oh, for sure.
The rest you kind of just figure out along the way.
Yeah. But then it's also like our team, we just hired 4 more people, and we're no longer a startup anymore. Like, we're actual team with like maternity leave and HR. And, I'm like, oh my gosh, more people, more problems.
It's getting more buttoned up.
It is. But I have a great team, and I'm so blessed. And I really think like the people you surround yourself with, and if they're on board with your mission, it just pushes it forward tenfold. So hire the right people, be willing to take risks. It's going to be hard. It's going to be worth it. That's my advice.
And you formally now work with your husband, right? Is that public knowledge?
Yeah, he's my CEO.
He's your
Actually,
CEO.
I don't know if that's announced, but he's officially newly appointed CEO.
Okay, so he's the boss now.
He's the
running
boss
show.
Man.
So, I mean, I know you and Ryan, you guys have always done things together,
Yeah.
even if this used to just be officially yours. And now y'all are sharing it, running it together. So what is it like now actually running it with him and working with him?
Yeah, he's always been my good voice of reason, my sounding board, my prayer buddy in big decisions. We've always, like you said, you know what it's like. You should probably be telling the people what it's like. You know better than me, but he's always been there.
I asked the questions here too.
He's been on team meetings and stuff. He's always had a good pulse, making projections. He's the one that does the Excel spreadsheets. I'm like, I don't know, I feel peace about this. So he's always been involved, but the level of time that he's been able to commit to it and truly like, we're bringing you on, your CEO, like, it's been awesome. We're a few months in, so it's not like we started it this way. So there's definitely the baton pass off. I'm not a control freak. I'm the most like type B CEO, really known to man. I also trust my people that I hire, so I'm not.
Me too.
Yeah, and so when you hire the right people, you don't have to be micromanaging. But I think it's going to be definitely a learning curve of like, this is how it's been done, and we're no longer. I think we just had a team meeting for 2 hours before this podcast, and we're no longer a startup anymore. Like we're legit. We're a business, and so that's where I'm thankful for Ryan, because he's coming and getting systems and processes in place. But yeah, I think we both have unique gifts. He got his MBA at SMU, and I'm just the medical science nerd that loves to formulate things, and so I'm the marketing, the face of the brand. But it's been really good. I think something that we're learning is like, we are having to dedicate every other week meetings to work, like a standing meeting. It's probably going to become weekly, if I'm being honest here soon, but really to focus and catch each other up, because it's really hard, with the kids and updates, and we still do that. Or, he's coming to give me a foot massage at night because I'm trying to relax, and he'll run something by me, or I'll bring something up.
What a guy. What a guy.
He's the best.
That's my boy, Ron.
But it is one of those things that like, we're going to have healthy boundaries, especially to do this long term.
Yeah. So that's the tricky part, right? Like Ann and I have been in this role for 10 years or so running PLG together, and people ask about like work-life balance, and I'm just like, what is that?
There's not
mean?
Such a thing.
Ann and I are constantly talking about our family and our lives and our business. It's just all a big hodgepodge of togetherness. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, talked to her throughout the day about plans for the kids, or what ideas for dinner and stuff like that. And at night we're talking about PLG, and people are like, it's supposed to be opposite. And like, we don't have that option. Our lives are too crazy. You just gotta figure out what works for you.
We're on vacation last week, like sending out offer letters with HR at Legoland. And I'm just like, this is all we know. I mean, we do have to have healthy boundaries to protect us in our marriage, but
totally,
like it definitely is. It's a unique thing. And that's where I'm like, it's not always sexy and glamorous. It's hard to take vacations and be fully unplugged. In fact, very hard, not that there's just stuff that comes up. Y'all know.
Mm-hmm. Now, 2 members of your leadership team go off on vacation, and then, all right. A couple more personal questions for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned homeschool early on in the podcast. So are the Duke's kids, are they destined for homeschool?
That's what we're doing. It's the first time I've ever shared this publicly. We did, it's so strange looking back. We've had, God plant seeds in little different seasons. And I'll never forget being in the military. There were a lot of families that homeschooled. For those of y'all listening that don't know my husband, he was a former C-130 pilot. Beginning of our marriage, we were Air Force family, living stationed in Abilene. And I remember being like, that's the weirdest thing. What do you do if you're homeschooled? Ryan and I both went to public school, great experiences. Life is different this day and age. I don't care what city you're in. It's just different. And so there's been little seeds along the way, but I remember some of the coolest kids that we interacted with in the military, younger, our friends' kids, were the most mature, wise, could hold conversations with adults, would sit at the dinner table, serve us, pray over the meal. I mean, we were so impressed with them because it wasn't pure segregation. They were around adults and traveling and learning. And so I think that seed was planted then. But then it just keeps coming up, for me. And I'm like, okay, when there are themes that keep coming up, I got to press in and pray. I never thought I'd be the homeschool mom, especially as an entrepreneur. I'm not like a teacher. People will say like, oh yeah, I see that gift in you and you're educational, but I didn't get my education degree. And really ultimately one of the biggest conversations that compelled us to do this is, so a lot of my friends that are entrepreneurial, like the owners of Branch Basics, Primarily Pure, they actually homeschool. And
people in the wellness space specifically.
Yes. I've seen them model it really, really well. Because I think homeschool has a stigma, and it doesn't have to be like mom teaching them at the kitchen table. It's a lot of life experiences and traveling and getting your hands dirty and being kids and playing outside. Kids in school these day and age have less outdoor time than prisoners.
Yeah.
And that's a sobering statistic. But it was, so I've seen it modeled well, but the ultimate decision for us was we were with a couple. He's actually played in the NFL for 10 years, and they were at one of the best schools in Detroit when he was with the Lions, and prestigious Christian school and all the things that you want in a school. And they realized that the bookends of the day, the morning and the evenings, were so stressful. It was like, pack your backpack, get this, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then it was like after school sports and do your homework and do this. And they were like, man, the 2 times the day where we get to influence our kids are the most stressful, the bookends of the day. And they just like, we're like, this isn't worth it. And we're also outsourcing precious time with our kids that we'll never get back to others. And so I was like, man, I so resonate with that. And so we are homeschooling.
That's super exciting.
We have a co-op. We're not, Mama T is not teaching all the time.
Okay. Will you teach sometimes, or it's always going to be the...
I will. And what we've learned is when kids they're going to a co-op twice a week. We have an amazing teacher. She's taught for 30 to 40 years. But when kids are in concentrated learning environments and their learning style is catered to, they don't need as much time. And there's a lot of time wasted in schools. Line up, get your folder out, quiet the classroom.
Right. Yes.
And so, she was like 4 hours twice a week. That's all I need.
4 hours
from
twice a
like
week,
6 to 9.
That blew me away when Anna's best friends from college, they are now homeschooling their kids in San Antonio. And they're like, we started like 9:30, and we're done by like 10:30 or 11.
Yeah,
with all the
because it's
curriculum.
concentrated. Isn't that nuts?
Then they're outside playing and doing stuff with other kids in the neighborhood who do homeschool too. No, I get it.
We're doing museum school too, and then we'll just travel. Like, we might take a field trip to DC, and that's school. That's learning. I think we've had to shift our brain of what school looks like, and so it's going to be different, but we're excited.
Okay, well, you heard it here first, folks. Taylor Dukes and Ryan Dukes are going to be homeschooling their children.
Is anyone surprised? Probably not.
Do you think you'll go the distance, or will it be for like kind of the elementary years, and then you'll go into more traditional schools?
I could see us going to school at some point, especially if our boys are athletic and they're social. We're still going to play sports. We're going to get exposure to people with museum school. There's other kids in our co-op that we've created, like they're going to do sports. So I don't know. I think we'll just let the Lord kind of lead us, and we're 1 year at a time. If I were to say right now, I would probably homeschool them through middle school and then let them do high school. I don't know. We'll also save a lot of money too. We'll spend that money on Euro trips and travel and history and, but also just like the worldview is so different this day and age. And who do I want influencing my kids, and what do I want them taught? And everything they're learning is like going to be scripture based. And when they do handwriting, it's going to be, tracing Bible verses and writing and looking at history from, how God created the world. And so I'm really excited for that.
Well, your kids are super lucky to have such intentional parents, and obviously to live such healthy lifestyles, and they're going to thrive in that environment. Super excited for both the boys. Proud of you and Ryan, of course. The other thing I'm proud about with you guys is y'all are starting to look kind of crazy like the Pattersons and leaving the city life.
Sure are.
Soon and heading out to the country.
Another thing I've never shared either. I mean, unless you know me, but not like publicly I've shared this. But yeah, it's so funny. Ever since I was diagnosed, I've wanted just a slower pace of life. And I can create that, and I can say no to things, which I have here in Fort Worth. I just want to get off the rat race, and slow down and get our boys outside. And this day and age, like I have so many precious memories. We grew up on some land and had, not land, a couple acres in Austin, but we had neighbors in a community, and we would literally, like, I remember being like, oh, the sun's going down, it's time to go home. And we had freedom to be kids and explore, and we just can't do that. Like my kid can't ride his bike down the street. He can't even walk across the street to the park. I want my kids to have that sense of freedom and confidence, and we have boys. They need to explore and be adventurous and get their hands dirty. So yeah, we're moving to 17 acres, and we're going to have animals, and we're going to do the farm life.
Okay. What kind of animals are we talking?
So we're inheriting some Galloway cows, also known as Oreo cows, as well as 4 mini donkeys.
Oh, I didn't know there were donkeys out there.
You didn't? They're mini. They're the cutest things you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, Anna wants mini donkeys.
Yeah.
Donkeys, you saw this the other day. New donkeys.
Your new neighbors. They're big, though.
They're big donkeys. Hank and Buster.
So cute.
And then we got a longhorn and 2 cows. Sweet little family. They just had their first baby boy and moved out there. So the kids are super excited to have a little baby out there. And the animals, of course. But yeah, I didn't realize y'all are getting 4 donkeys.
Yeah. Well, there were 3, and then Mama just had her baby. His name is Banks. He's the newest member of the fam. Technically not yet. We haven't signed our contract, but it's pretty official. But it's been a God thing. It's been off market. The family that actually were moving to their house, they homeschooled. And it served their family really well. They had a boy and a girl, and the boy has a barn, and he could do woodworking. I think he actually had a business. I didn't hear that directly from them, but he was able to do that. And so, and just to our boys love helping. You probably know that with your boys. They love doing things. And so it's not like monotonous chores. It's like, hey, can you go grab that? Like, we have a chicken coop. I haven't promised chickens yet. We'll probably get them. We'll probably be like y'all, but we need to learn the lay of the land first.
Yeah.
And Ryder's already like, I can't wait to get my Power Wheels and drive down to my John Deere Green and load up the eggs in the basket and bring them up. They just love that. And they do well when they're given tasks. And so we're just excited for that. And we're only 15 minutes from, Central Market. So we're still not super far out in the boonies. We have our access to our grocery stores and...
Not going to be completely Amish. But,
no.
just a little bit. Advice on the chickens. Do not let your kids name the chickens.
Yeah, I heard they get eaten.
Yeah,
and it's
some
a thing.
sad moments at the Patterson house. Poor Elsa.
Yeah, R.I.P.
The Elsa chicken. Anyway, life goes on. Circle of life. It's been good learning opportunities. We've been out in the country for 5 years now, I guess, since COVID, and it's been awesome. Obviously, you guys come out and run around, and
y'all were also our inspo.
No,
yeah, you were. We loved y'all's life out there.
Well, it's been a blessing to us. I will say we feel the temptations of modern life and conveniences, and if we lived in the city, we could get to this restaurant a lot faster and different social events or whatever it is, and so we feel that kind of tug. Mm-hmm. But we've always managed to resist it, and we're pretty strong in the idea of staying out there and keeping that piece of land in our families forever. Yeah, because it'll become a part of you. And obviously, I'm excited for you and Ryan to embrace that and see you guys out there farming those cows. And
I know my new family members.
I don't know what you do with mini donkeys, but other than just kind of
they're kind of like just big dogs and friendly, and they graze the land. And we'll see. We'll
keep
learn
the coyotes
the ropes.
away.
Yeah, do they? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, to protect the chickens. Okay,
smart.
I have
a lot to learn.
Well, Taylor, you're great. Obviously, appreciate what you've shared with us today. Your time here. I know bright lights aren't your favorite, as we talked about. I wish we could have done this podcast outside.
No, lighting's everything. This is amazing.
This is really cool. But thanks for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me, TP. I appreciate it. This was fun.
All right, let's get out of here.
If you liked today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast and don't forget to leave us a review. It really does help us get the word out. As we dive into these important conversations about safety and about community, I'm reminded of why I became a personal injury lawyer in the first place. Every single day, I see people whose lives have been turned upside down because of some accident in one form or another. It's a confusing and overwhelming time, and it can feel impossible for folks to know where to turn. If you or someone you love have been in an accident like that and you need honest guidance, give us a call. We'll get to know you, we'll get to know your story, and we will be with you every step of the way. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.